So, good morning. It is March the 8th in 2021. And I had the opportunity to attend a few meetings, but really it's about how legislation is described here in America. I'm going to pause this. I want to print something.
2017 are approved and ratified by the voters at the 2020 general election. 4. Establishment of state university legislature to provide by law for governance, control and management of state university and protection of academic freedom. Effective November 24, 2020, if the provisions of Assembly Joint Resolution Number 5, 2017 are approved and ratified by the voters at the 2020 general election. 5. Establishment of normal schools and grades of schools, oath of teachers and professors. 6. Support of university and common schools by direct legislative appropriation, priority of appropriations. 7. Board of Regents, election and duties, effective through November 23, 2020, and after that date unless the provisions of Assembly Joint Resolution Number 5, 2017 are approved and ratified by the voters at the 2020 general election. 7. Board of Regents, election and duties, repealed. See file number 34, Statutes of Nevada 2017, at page 4584, Statutes of Nevada 2019, 4595. Effective November 24, 2020, if the provisions of Assembly Joint Resolution Number 5, 2017 are approved and ratified by the voters at the 2020 general election. 8. Immediate organization and maintenance of state university, effective through November 23, 2020, and after that date unless the provisions of Assembly Joint Resolution Number 5, 2017 are approved and ratified by the voters at the 2020 general election. 8. Use of proceeds from public lands donated by Act of Congress for benefit of certain departments of state university, effective November 24, 2020, if the provisions of Assembly Joint Resolution Number 5, 2017 are approved and ratified by the voters at the 2020 general election. 9. Sectarian instruction prohibited in common schools and university. 10. No public money to be used for sectarian purposes. Section 1. Legislature to encourage education, appointment, term and duties of superintendent of public instruction. The legislature shall encourage by all suitable means the promotion of intellectual, literary, scientific, mining, mechanical, agricultural, and moral improvements, and also provide for a superintendent of public instruction, and by law prescribe the manner of appointment, term of office and the duties thereof. Amended in 1956, proposed and passed by the 1953 legislature, agreed to and passed by the 1955 legislature, approved and ratified by the people at the 1956 general election. See Statutes of Nevada 1953, p. 716, Statutes of Nevada 1955, p. 926. Section 2. Uniform System of Common Schools. The legislature shall provide for a uniform system of common schools, by which a school shall be established and maintained in each school district at least 6 months in every year, and any school district which shall allow instruction of a sectarian character therein may be deprived of its proportion of the interest of the public school fund during such neglect or infraction, and the legislature may pass such laws as will tend to secure a general attendance of the children in each school district upon said public schools. Amended in 1938, proposed and passed by the 1935 legislature, agreed to and passed by the 1937 legislature, and approved and ratified by the people at the 1938 general election. See Statutes of Nevada 1935, p. 440, Statutes of Nevada 1937, p. 550. Sec. 3. pledge of certain property and money, associated estates and fines collected under penal laws for educational purposes, apportionment and use of interest. All lands granted by Congress to this state for educational purposes, all estates that escheat to the state, all property given or bequeathed to the state for educational purposes, and the proceeds derived from these sources, together with the percentage of the proceeds from the sale of federal lands which has been granted by Congress to this state without restriction or for educational purposes, and all fines collected under the penal laws of the state are hereby pledged for educational purposes, and the money therefrom must not be transferred to other funds for other uses. The interest only earned on the money derived from these sources must be apportioned by the legislature among the several counties for educational purposes, and, if necessary, a portion of that interest may be appropriated for the support of the state university, but any of that interest which is unexpended at the end of any year must be added to the principal sum pledged for educational purposes. Amended in 1886, 1889, 1912. 1916, 1980, and 1988. The First Amendment was approved and ratified by the people at the 1886 general election, but no entry of the proposed amendment had been made upon the journal of either house of the legislature, and such omission was fatal to the adoption of the amendment. See State ex rel. Stevenson v. To Fly, 19 Nev. 391, 1887. The Second Amendment was proposed and passed by the 1885 legislature, agreed to and passed by the 1887 legislature, and approved and ratified by the people at a special election held February 11, 1889. See Statutes of Nevada 1885, p. 160, Statutes of Nevada 1887, p. 168. The Third Amendment was proposed and passed by the 1909 legislature, agreed to and passed by the 1911 legislature, and approved and ratified by the people at the 1912 general election. See Statutes of Nevada 1909, p. 340, Statutes of Nevada 1911, p. 453. The Fourth Amendment was proposed and passed by the 1913 legislature, agreed to and passed by the 1915 legislature, and approved and ratified by the people at the 1916 general election. See Statutes of Nevada 1913, p. 591, Statutes of Nevada 1915, p. 513. The Fifth Amendment was proposed and passed by the 1977 legislature, agreed to and passed by the 1979 legislature, and approved and ratified by the people at the 1980 general election. See Statutes of Nevada 1977, p. 1716, Statutes of Nevada 1979, p. 1953. The Sixth Amendment was proposed and passed by the 1985 legislature, agreed to and passed by the 1987 legislature, and approved and ratified by the people at the 1988 general election. See Statutes of Nevada 1985, p. 2361, Statutes of Nevada 1987, p. 2355. Sec. 4. Establishment of State University, controlled by Board of Regents, effective through November 23, 2020, and after that date unless the provisions of Assembly Joint Resolution No. 5, 2017 are approved and ratified by the voters at the 2020 general election. The legislature shall provide for the establishment of a state university which shall embrace departments for agriculture, mechanic arts, and mining to be controlled by a Board of Regents whose duties shall be prescribed by law. Sec. 4. Establishment of State University, legislature to provide by law for governance, control and management of State University and protection of academic freedom. Effective November 24, 2020, if the provisions of Assembly Joint Resolution No. 5, 2017 are approved and ratified by the voters at the 2020 general election. 1. The legislature shall provide for the establishment of a state university which shall embrace departments for agriculture, mechanic arts, and mining, and other departments deemed appropriate for the state university. 2. The legislature shall provide by law for a. the governance, control and management of the state university. B. The reasonable protection of individual academic freedom for persons who are enrolled in or who are employees or contractors of the state university and other public institutions of higher education in this state in order to facilitate the policies of Section 1 of this article to encourage by all suitable means the promotion of intellectual, literary, scientific, mining, mechanical, agricultural, ethical and other educational improvements. Proposed amendments passed by the 2017 legislature, and agreed to and passed by the 2019 legislature, effective November 24, 2020, if approved and ratified by the voters at the 2020 general election. C. Statutes of Nevada 2017, p. 4583, Statutes of Nevada 2019, p. 4594. Sec. 5. Establishment of normal schools and grades of schools. Oath of teachers and professors. The legislature shall have power to establish normal schools, and such different grades of schools, from the primary department to the university, as in their discretion they may deem necessary, and all professors in said university, or teachers in said schools of whatever grade, shall be required to take and subscribe to the oath as prescribed in Article 15 of this Constitution. No professor or teacher who fails to comply with the provisions of any law framed in accordance with the provisions of this section, shall be entitled to receive any portion of the public monies set apart for school purposes. Section 6. Support of university and common schools by direct legislative appropriation. Priority of appropriations. 1. In addition to other means provided for the support and maintenance of said university and common schools, the legislature shall provide for their support and maintenance by direct legislative appropriation from the general fund, upon the presentation of budgets in the manner required by law. 2. During a regular session of the legislature, before any other appropriation is enacted to fund a portion of the state budget for the next ensuing biennium, the legislature shall enact one or more appropriations to provide the money the legislature deems to be sufficient, when combined with the local money reasonably available for this purpose, to fund the operation of the public schools in this state for kindergarten through grade 12 for the next ensuing biennium for the population reasonably estimated for that biennium. 3. During a special session of the legislature that is held between the end of a regular session in which the legislature has not enacted the appropriation or appropriations required by subsection 2 to fund education for the next ensuing biennium and the first day of that next ensuing biennium, before any other appropriation is enacted other than appropriations required to pay the cost of that special session, the legislature shall enact one or more appropriations to provide the money the legislature deems to be sufficient, when combined with the local money reasonably available for this purpose, to fund the operation of the public schools in this state for kindergarten through grade 12 for the next ensuing biennium for the population reasonably estimated for that biennium. 4. During a special session of the legislature that is held in a biennium for which the legislature has not enacted the appropriation or appropriations required by subsection 2 to fund education for the biennium in which the special session is being held, before any other appropriation is enacted other than appropriations required to pay the cost of that special session, the legislature shall enact one or more appropriations to provide the money the legislature deems to be sufficient, when combined with the local money reasonably available for this purpose, to fund the operation of the public schools in this state for kindergarten through grade 12 for the population reasonably estimated for the biennium in which the special session is held. 5. Any appropriation of money enacted in violation of subsection 2, 3 or 4 is void. 6. As used in this section, biennium means a period of 2 fiscal years, beginning on July 1st of an odd-numbered year and ending on June 30th of the next ensuing odd-numbered year. Amended in 1889, 1938, 1954 and 2006. The First Amendment was proposed and passed by the 1885 legislature, and agreed to and passed by the 1887 legislature, and approved and ratified by the people at a special election held February 11, 1889. C. Statutes of Nevada 1885, p. 161. Statutes of Nevada 1887, p. 169. The Second Amendment was proposed and passed by the 1935 legislature, and agreed to and passed by the 1937 legislature, and approved and ratified by the people at the 1938 general election. C. Statutes of Nevada 1935, p. 440. Statutes of Nevada 1937, p. 550. The Third Amendment was proposed and passed by the 1951 legislature, and agreed to and passed by the 1953 legislature, and approved and ratified by the people at the 1954 general election. C. Statutes of Nevada 1951, p. 591. Statutes of Nevada 1953, p. 716. The Fourth Amendment was proposed by initiative petition and approved and ratified by the people at the 2004 and 2006 general elections. Sec. 7. Board of Regents, Election and Duties. Effective through November 23, 2020, and after that date unless the provisions of Assembly Joint Resolution No. 5, 2017 are approved and ratified by the voters at the 2020 general election. The Governor, Secretary of State, and Superintendent of Public Instruction shall for the first 4 years and until their successors are elected and qualified constitute a Board of Regents to control and manage the affairs of the university and the funds of the same under such regulations as may be provided by law. But the legislature shall at its regular session next preceding the expiration of the term of office of said Board of Regents provide for the election of a new Board of Regents and define their duties. Sec. 7. Board of Regents, Election and Duties. Repealed. See File Number 34, Statutes of Nevada 2017, at page 4584, Statutes of Nevada 2019, 4595. Effective November 24, 2020, if the provisions of Assembly Joint Resolution No. 5, 2017 are approved and ratified by the voters at the 2020 general election. Proposed repeal passed by the 2017 legislature, and agreed to and passed by the 2019 legislature. Effective November 24, 2020, if approved and ratified by the voters at the 2020 general election. C. Statutes of Nevada 2017, p. 4584, Statutes of Nevada 2019, p. 4595. Sec. 8. Immediate organization and maintenance of State University. Effective through November 23, 2020, and after that date unless the provisions of Assembly Joint Resolution No. 5, 2017 are approved and ratified by the voters at the 2020 general election. The Board of Regents shall, from the interest accruing from the first funds which come under their control, immediately organize and maintain the said mining department in such manner as to make it most effective and useful, provided that all the proceeds of the public lands donated by Act of Congress approved July 2 AD 1862, for a college for the benefit of agriculture, the mechanics arts, and including military tactics shall be invested by the said Board of Regents in a separate fund to be appropriated exclusively for the benefit of the first named departments to the university as set forth in Section 4 above, and the legislature shall provide that if through neglect or any other contingency, any portion of the fund so set apart, shall be lost or misappropriated, The state of Nevada shall replace said amount so lost or misappropriated in said fund so that the principal of said fund shall remain forever undiminished. Sec. 8. Use of proceeds from public lands donated by Act of Congress for benefit of certain departments of state university. Effective November 24, 2020, if the provisions of Assembly Joint Resolution Number 5, 2017 are approved and ratified by the voters at the 2020 general election. The proceeds of the public lands donated by Act of Congress approved July 2, 1862, Chapter 130, 12 Stat. 503, and thereafter amended by Act of Congress, for a college for the benefit of agriculture and mechanic arts, including military tactics, shall be invested by the state of Nevada in the manner required by law in a separate fund to be appropriated exclusively for the benefit of the first named departments to the state university as set forth in Section 4 of this article. And the legislature shall provide that if through neglect or any other contingency, any portion of the fund so set apart is lost or misappropriated, the state of Nevada shall replace said amount so lost or misappropriated in said fund so that the principal of said fund shall remain forever undiminished. Proposed amendments passed by the 2017 legislature, agreed to and passed by the 2019 legislature. Effective November 24, 2020, if approved and ratified by the voters at the 2020 general election. C. Statutes of Nevada 2017, p. 4583, Statutes of Nevada 2019, p. 4594. Sec. 9. Sectarian instruction prohibited in common schools and university. No sectarian instruction shall be imparted or tolerated in any school or university that may be established under this Constitution. Section 10. No public money to be used for sectarian purposes. No public funds of any kind or character whatever, state, county or municipal, shall be used for sectarian purpose. Added in 1880. Proposed and passed by the 1877 legislature, and agreed to and passed by the 1879 legislature, and approved and ratified by the people at the 1880 general election. C. Statutes of Nevada 1877, p. 221, Statutes of Nevada 1879, p. 149.
Wow, that was so much. Now I'm going to go click here and see if it takes me to this page because I need to know what sectarian means, but let's just click here. Open a link and see what it says. Let's just take this and copy it right there. Control C. And let's just shrink that. And let's start a new file. New tab. And that one. Oh, I don't want that one. I want pages. New tab. New. Blank. Create it. Command V. And let's just select it. Hopefully it works.
Management of the affairs of the state university, and, in doing so, the legislature also will have more options and greater flexibility to review, reform and improve all other institutions, programs and operations of the Nevada system of higher education, and whereas, amending the Nevada Constitution to remove the Board of Regents' constitutional status will not repeal, either expressly or by implication, the existing statutory provisions which apply to the Board of Regents, the state university and all other institutions, programs and operations of the Nevada system of higher education, including without limitation, the existing statutory provisions that provide for the voters who elect the members of the Board of Regents. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Assembly and Senate of the State of Nevada, jointly, that this resolution may be cited as the Nevada Higher Education Reform, Accountability and Oversight Amendment, and be it further resolved that Section 4 of Article 11 of the Nevada Constitution be amended to read as follows. Sec. 4. 1. The legislature shall provide for the establishment of a state university which shall embrace departments for agriculture, mechanic arts, and mining, to be controlled by a board of regents whose duties shall be prescribed by law, and other departments deemed appropriate for the state university. 2. The legislature shall provide by law for a. the governance, control and management of the state university, b. the reasonable protection of individual academic freedom for persons who are enrolled in or who are employees or contractors of the state university and other public institutions of higher education in this state in order to facilitate the policies of Section 1 of this article to encourage by all suitable means the promotion of intellectual, literary, scientific, mining, mechanical, agricultural, ethical and other educational improvements, and be it further resolved that Section 8 of Article 11 of the Nevada Constitution be amended to read as follows. Sec. 8. The Board of Regents shall, from the interest accruing from the first funds which come under their control, immediately organize and maintain the said mining department in such manner as to make it most effective and useful, provided that all the proceeds of the public lands donated by Act of Congress approved July 2nd AD 1862 to 1862, Chapter 130, 12 Stat. 503, and thereafter amended by Act of Congress, for a college for the benefit of agriculture.
Is that it? I'm going to have to pause. There's something else needs to go in here because I just need to know what that word means. Pause.
All recognizances heretofore taken, or which may be taken before the change from a territorial to a state government, shall remain valid, and shall pass to, and may be prosecuted in the name of the state, and all bonds executed to the governor of the territory or to any other officer or court in his or their official capacity, or to the people of the United States in the territory of Nevada, shall pass to the governor, or other officer or court, and his or their successors in office for the uses therein respectively expressed, and may be sued on, and recovery had accordingly, and all property real, personal or mixed, and all judgments, bonds, specialties, choses in action, claims and debts of whatsoever description, and all records, and public archives of the territory of Nevada, shall issue to invest in the state of Nevada, and may be sued for and recovered in the same manner and to the same extent by the state of Nevada, as the same could have been by the territory of Nevada. All criminal prosecutions and penal actions, which may have arisen, or which may arise before the change from a territorial to a state government, and which shall then be pending, shall be prosecuted to judgment and execution in the name of the state. All offenses committed against the laws of the territory of Nevada, before the change from a territorial to a state government, and which shall not be prosecuted before such change, may be prosecuted in the name and by the authority of the state of Nevada, with like effect as though such change had not taken place, and all penalties incurred shall remain the same as if this Constitution had not been adopted. All actions at law, and suits in equity, and other legal proceedings, which may be pending in any of the courts of the territory of Nevada at the time of the change from a territorial to a state government, may be continued and transferred to, and determined by, any court of the state, which shall have jurisdiction of the subject matter thereof. All actions at law and suits in equity, and all other legal proceedings, which may be pending in any of the courts of the territory of Nevada at the time of the change from a territorial to a state government, shall be continued and transferred to, and may be prosecuted to judgment and execution in any court of the state which shall have jurisdiction of the subject matter thereof. And all books, papers and records, relating to the same shall be transferred in like manner to such court.
Now that was a whole mouthful. Now let's just go get that one word, sedition. What? I'm not sure. Hold on.
Authority to comply with Federal Equal Access Act, Universal Citation, NV Reverend Stat Paragraph 388.150, 2019. 1. No books, tracts or papers of a sectarian or denominational character may be used or introduced in any public school established pursuant to the provisions of this title of NRS, nor may any sectarian or denominational doctrines be taught in any public school. 2. Any school district or charter school whose officers knowingly allow any public schools to be taught in violation of this section forfeits all right to any public school funds. 3. Nothing in this section prohibits a school district or charter school from complying with applicable federal laws, such as the Equal Access Act, 20 U.S.C. paragraph 4071 et sec.
Well, that's important. Let's just get this right here. Copy it, Command C. And let's pause the recording. Let's start speaking. Speech.
LII U.S. Code Title 20 Chapter 52 Subchapter 8 Paragraph 4071. 20 U.S. Code Paragraph 4071, Denial of Equal Access Prohibited U.S. Code Notes Pref. Next, a restriction of limited open forum on basis of religious, political, philosophical, or other speech content prohibited. It shall be unlawful for any public secondary school which receives federal financial assistance and which has a limited open forum to deny equal access or a fair opportunity to, or discriminate against, any students who wish to conduct a meeting within that limited open forum on the basis of the religious, political, philosophical, or other content of the speech at such meetings. B. Limited open forum defined. A public secondary school has a limited open forum whenever such school grants an offering to or opportunity for one or more non-curriculum related student groups to meet on school premises during non-instructional time. C. Fair opportunity criteria. Schools shall be deemed to offer a fair opportunity to students who wish to conduct a meeting within its limited open forum if such school uniformly provides that 1. The meeting is voluntary and student-initiated, 2. There is no sponsorship of the meeting by the school, the government, or its agents or employees, 3. Employees or agents of the school or government are present at religious meetings only in a non-participatory capacity. 4. The meeting does not materially and substantially interfere with the orderly conduct of educational activities within the school. And 5. Non-school persons may not direct, conduct, control, or regularly attend activities of student groups. D. Construction of subchapter. With respect to certain rights, nothing in this subchapter shall be construed to authorize the United States or any state or political subdivision thereof. 1. To influence the form or content of any prayer or other religious activity. 2. To require any person to participate in prayer or other religious activity. 3. To expend public funds beyond the incidental cost of providing the space for student-initiated meetings. 4. To compel any school agent or employee to attend a school meeting if the content of the speech at the meeting is contrary to the beliefs of the agent or employee. 5. To sanction meetings that are otherwise unlawful. 6. To limit the rights of groups of students which are not of a specified numerical size. Or 7. To abridge the constitutional rights of any person. E. Federal financial assistance to schools unaffected notwithstanding the availability of any other remedy under the Constitution or the laws of the United States. Nothing in this subchapter shall be construed to authorize the United States to deny or withhold federal financial assistance to any school. F. Authority of schools with respect to order, discipline, well-being, and attendance concerns. Nothing in this subchapter shall be construed to limit the authority of the school, its agents or employees, to maintain order and discipline on school premises, to protect the well-being of students and faculty, and to assure that attendance of students at meetings is voluntary. Pub. L. 98377, Title VIII, Paragraph 802, August 11th, 1984, 98 Stat. 1302.
That's important.
13. Local Administration U.S. Code Prov. Next, a local council 1 in general to be eligible to receive funds under this chapter, a local government entity, Indian tribe, regional corporation, or Native Hawaiian entity, as appropriate, shall establish or designate a local council, which shall be composed of a. Representatives of local agencies directly affected by early learning programs assisted under this chapter, b. Parents, c. Other individuals concerned with early learning issues in the locality, such as representative entities providing elementary education, child care resource and referral services, early learning opportunities, child care, and health services, and d. Other key community leaders. 2. Designating existing entity if a local government entity, Indian tribe, regional corporation, or Native Hawaiian entity has, before December 21st, 2000, a local council or regional entity that is comparable to the local council described in paragraph 1, the entity, tribe, or corporation may designate the council or entity as a local council under this chapter, and shall be considered to have established a local council in compliance with this subsection. 3. Functions. The local council shall be responsible for preparing and submitting the application described in section 9412 of this title. B. Administration. 1. Administrative costs not more than 3% of the funds received by a local council under this chapter shall be used to pay for the administrative costs of a local council in carrying out this chapter. 2. Fiscal agent. A local council may designate any entity with a demonstrated capacity for administering grants that is affected by, or concerned with, early learning issues, including the state, to serve as fiscal agent for the administration of grant funds received by the local council under this chapter. Pub. L. 106-554, paragraph 1A1, title VIII, paragraph 814, December 21st, 2000. 114 Stat. 2763, 27638-88.
Open the link. So critical. Wasn't found. That is the issue. Let's see, what about this one? You go here, open it. Nothing. Nothing. Oh, maybe federal. Oh, it takes you right to the link. Oh, cool. Public law. 712 pages. We're not going to get on through all that. I just want you to understand that whatever's going on here and how they're denying access to African American children at such an early age is criminal. And the people who live in Nevada have an obligation to ensure access happens for the children who look like them. And we must uncover every stone that is prohibiting our children from accessing public education. Understand, it's just public law. This is what we're talking about. And the people who get the money have to take the appropriations and create access for all people. And that's what the federal government says. And so as we look at all these appendix, everything has been altered. As talks about the big money coming into federal education from our tax dollars, and then it talks about community service and everything. And look, unemployment, everything's included in the public law. And then you got Nevada and their ability to finagle and take funding away from the people who are actually generating the dollar, because it's our tax dollars that are paying for the poor people. And then the state kicks in some money. And then, with other things, we have casino stuff going on here. And we have mining going on here. And guess what? What's going on right here with the harvesting of our children is unacceptable in 2021. And I'm If I'm the only one talking about it, then hey, more power to it, because I have grandchildren, and I'm just telling you the importance of, even if we have children, don't, or choose not to have children, people that you know have children who look like you, and the rules that are being, the Mine Health Safety, Bureau of Labor, everything's under the federal government. Everything in America is part of the federal government. And the oversight, maintenance of that comes from, look, Social Security's right here, health and labor. Okay. And this is just public law. But because our children are being relegated, let me download this document. Shoot. Save it. And then, this is not, oh, this is, whatever, public law. But I'm sure that's not what I'm looking for. This is the one I just downloaded. So you go here, you just move this stuff out of the way. Since we're doing a little training here, we'll close that, and then we just type in black. And see, black comes in, it tells you how many pages, and it's just coming up. On the left side, when you type in black, and then you just start going down and seeing what it talks about black in the public law. What? Talks about historically black colleges. Talks about, money. And I thought I seen music. We could have something going on here, really, in music or entertainment. That's black, mostly black alone. This is not, so black is just starting so negative. Let's look at put students, and that doesn't come up. Let's put JUV, yeah, ENILE, and see where juvenile comes up. So this section right here talks about juvenile delinquents, and it talks about, whatever. And then you go right here, and it talks about the juvenile justice programs, additional money for juvenile justice programs. And then it just tells you, under public law, what you got to do and how much money is going there. And let's look here. All right. What is that under? I don't know what that is, but, and then more. Juvenile. All right. Participation in quality early learning, including those designed to promote effective parenting, can decrease the future of incidents of teenage pregnancy, welfare dependency, and at-risk behaviors, and juvenile delinquency for children. And then it's just talking about investing more in quality early. But what can we say here? I just need to get you that one more paper that's going to bring it all into concept so you understand what I'm talking about. Early this morning, let me just pause the recording. Pause.
The Perkins Vocational and Technical Education Act significantly expanded career and technical education programs across the nation. 1994, Improving America Schools Act provided additional supports for bilingual and immigrant education. 2001, No Child Left Behind requires annual state testing, expanded public data reporting requirements, and assessment of school quality. 2004, the Individuals with Disabilities Improvement Act (IDEA) created modifications to the IEP process and requirements of the Response to Intervention (RTI) approach. 2009, development of more rigorous academic standards work begins on what would later evolve to the Nevada Academic Content Standards. 2012, federal waivers to No Child Left Behind provides more state autonomy in assessing school quality through the Nevada School Performance Framework. 2015, Every Student Succeeds Act expands state autonomy in assessing school quality, creates levels of evidence for research-based interventions. 7.
Let me take this down. Pause. I guess I'm going to have to read it. So it says Nevada expansion of education supports in 1997. Nevada education reform called for integration of technology as a part of classroom instruction. In 2001, distance education established the creation of distance education courses that delivered by means of video, computer, and internet. And then in 2001, safe and respectful learning environment. The legislation school provided environments which were persons differing beliefs and backgrounds could use full academic. I gotta move this down. Can I pull it? Oh, I don't know. Oh, maybe. Okay. Not sure. And then expansion of education supports in 2013. I should just go back here. I'm not sure if I can share that page. Let me pause the share and pause the right thing so I can read. All right, so here we go. Maybe I can, maybe hopefully you still see what I'm seeing. So, you know, this was a presentation done by the Department of, what is that? Education, presented to the pupil-centered funding folk. And they were just really talking about what Nevada would need to be able to provide access to all children. And right now, they're not providing access to all children. And that's just really what they were saying. And so when they went through this expansion of what, you know, what the law requires, and then all the way down here, the expansion of supports. So they had this was English Mastery Council, Zoom program, plan to recognize Clark County School District Superintendent of Public Instruction for ensuring incorporation of the school district. So, you know, whatever. Victory program, Read by Grade 3 in 2015. Great Teaching and Learning Fund, Handle with Care. All right, let's see. What does this current funding look like? Pretty dismal because Nevada is not funding compared to other state agencies in 2080 and 1980. This was 2016 where this is 2021. So just imagine who's not, I mean, they don't have anything here about 2021. They went all the way back to 2016 where they could get some numbers for you. And then it's just saying in 2016 we would have needed more than 224 new teachers. But, you know, they want to put this stuff on teacher shortage. And it's not, it's that the teachers don't want to work with your kids because you're not representing who they want to work with. And that's just real. So what are the consequences for underfunding and staffing? Education laws were written with the intent to improve lives, really? And this is all the things that they did. And this is all the things that they did, right? So education laws have significantly expanded over the last 40 years. I'm 62. The Nevada Department of Education is staffed significantly below historic and national averages. The Nevada Department of Education is funded, and it's just talking about they don't have no fund, no money. Okay. So what are the consequences? I tell you what the consequences are. The consequences are to our children as we are being pushed out of public education. And, you know, really this juvenile stuff that they got going on here, this willful defiance and this harbor program, you don't see anything about the harbor program where they've allocated dollars for the harbor and you don't know what it brings you. But everybody black want to tell me about how wonderful it is. And I don't see it here. Do you see it? Or am I missing something? So, how, you know, this got to be through the juvenile division of the courts. And our services are coming from the courts. And you know, the Clark County School District doesn't have the right to create programs that would push us into bondage, basically, for lifetime. And I'm trying to get my people to understand that, you know, even though they think they know something, perhaps they don't know it all. And perhaps the conversation is that we all come in the room and start talking about what's really happening for children who look like us. As, you know, this is America, and I'm an American, and I'm a citizen, and I have the obligation to bring you this information. So please like, subscribe, share, and follow me on Anchor as my podcast. And here, I have to stop this here and share the screen again. Let's see if my podcast came up. No, it didn't. So let me just shrink this. Okay, I can't minimize. Okay, well, whatever. I should be able to start this out. There we go. So I can shrink this and I can share my screen. Oh, wait. Now put it back up. And then share. All right, now we're sharing the screen. And here's my podcast. And I have not... So let me start by just welcoming you to my podcast on Anchor. And welcoming you to 2021. We've left 2020 and we're moving on to 2021. And it's unfortunate that I feel that our public education system is just truly broken. And as I had the opportunity to participate in public education and the oversight process, tell you what, you need to join in the fight. So until we meet again, just log on to my podcast, follow me on Anchor, follow me on YouTube, follow me on Instagram, follow me on Facebook. But know this, the reality of engaging in the change that you want to see is the ability to engage in the process. Thank you. So good morning. I'll just take a moment and welcome you to my podcast on empowering oneself in 2021 in America. Public education is strictly a tool to ensure that access happens for families who live within states. And the federal government has obliged itself in providing additional services for states who lacked resources based on the number of people that they were attempting to provide services. And let's not pretend these are not services that are provided, as we are taxpayers. And as we are taxpayers, the responsibility to engage in the process of oversight is a reality. Yet and still, this is 2021. And for many, many reasons, African Americans have not engaged in the public oversight process in which their children are expected to participate by law, compulsory laws across the United States that enable, citizenship and a productive lifestyle. Reality check 2021. If your people are not engaged locally in the oversight or the maintaining of the oversight and the management of the public outcomes for the resources, then perhaps your voices have been silenced over time. I find it very difficult to understand how states, or any state, could write laws that are, that don't make sense. Here in Nevada, there's suggested legislation that they will not be measuring the maintenance of effort until 2026. And I said, oh, really? And then they don't want to have to certify their teachers who are working in particular programs with certain children, and I don't know who they are because the district gets to choose the training level that these folks actually happen. And I said, wow, I wonder whose kids are in those programs with those nonprofit volunteers that don't have an obligation to provide anything from 4 years old and up. But that's early start. That's early pre-kindergarten. That is a responsibility of the MOE, maintenance of effort, to ensure that access is happening for children who look like that we qualify for free and reduced lunch, or that may live on a reservation, or just an American soul. Let's understand what we are talking here. And if you didn't witness it anywhere else, you could witness that 45 really explained what choice was as he pointed out the one little African American child who had been going to a failing school for many, many years, I guess, and he granted her a certificate that she can go and enroll in a non-failing school. But that was part of Leave No Child Behind. And there were always consequences, but the states got to pick their consequences. If they didn't meet their adequate healing progress. So we live in a nation in which the rules or the policies that are aligned should be aligned with the federal maintenance of effort, meaning the outcomes that are from the investment of the dollars that are invested in your community, as you people are the ones who are paying taxes. And don't you feel it? It's almost April, tax time. It's almost like 420. You guys should understand that we too are Americans, and our voices must be heard. And if our voices are not, then it's just a very restrictive local policy that is very ambitious and bold and emboldened with whatever they've done and how they will not be corrected. And I said, wow, how do these people feel that they're going to get a waiver when nobody got a waiver for special education? Nobody in the United States, there was no waivers issued under special ed. That's how come every state was told that they needed to provide those foundational services under Child Find and early support. But if they're not addressing their needs by doing a needs assessment, because they can provide information to the public that said that African Americans were disproportionately being targeted for willful defiance issues and behavioral issues, and I'm saying, okay, what opportunity did they have to learn the test that was expected, and what did you do to ensure that access happens? If you don't have any data that even talks about what you do, but you still want to use the money from the tax dollars that are generated by the people who come here and perform, basically, as this is the entertainment capital of the world, and blacks participate. But how do those black folks, those black people, participate in the maintenance of effort and the outcomes that should be aligned to reach the state standards of access? But these people have went so far as to create certificates that if you're a high school student and you don't think you're going to graduate, that you can apply for this adult certificate and still stop coming to school. Not that you have a skill that you can even count on. And it's just kind of like so ironic that in 2021 that we don't understand that we have choice, just as they have choice. But we don't have to stay where children are not being successful. Or we could organize and get more than 51%, just like in California, to take over the school with a service provider. The whole thing means that you just have to organize and have conversations about the low outcomes of the investment, because you have to understand we're paying people. And it's almost like on the plantation, where the massa is over the plantation and we just suffer with whatever's come to our way. And I'm sorry, suffering is not something I do in silence. So, as I've been suffering in regards to understanding just what's happening here, I have uncovered some anomalies that are written in legislation that suggests that, a nonprofit could open up an early start program for children in poverty, basically, and could be awarded up to $1 million. Now, I don't know who has the matching funds to do that, but there is no MOE of these programs, although they're supposed to provide it. It's a nonprofit, so what do you expect from a third-party provider? Absolutely nothing, dear. And all of these partners have an obligation to just do the piece that they said that they would do. But understanding when I say the curriculum piece lies within the state responsibility to ensure that access is happening for all children. But if you have a targeted public subgroup that's been identified as funded and the target risks are real, so you have not of Title I children who would receive additional funds, just as we allow additional funding to go to children with disabilities as their needs are being met, measured, and met. That's all I can tell you. Because failure just is not an option that I understand. I believe that foundational support for children demonstrates the maintenance of effort. And if you take the federal dollars, heads up, you need to provide the services for the targeted subgroup. But if you cannot, choice is everything. And if you don't understand how choice affects you in 2021, wake up. Did you not see 45 walk out of the White House without any charges? Choice is real. But he also had choices to be duty bound and honor the Constitution. And I will say under the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment, we too have the same rights to have an opportunity to learn and benefit a meaningful option of public support. And we have a right to criticize, because the one right we have in America is to protest for the rights. And this is a protest, in essence, once you understand that the power lies within you to choose the maintenance of effort and the support. And if it's working for your children, as America is a socialist nation with social services, and I don't know what socialist nation looks like except for this one, as I've never been in any other, but know that people who come from other countries participate in the writing of the laws and the implementation of the support, just as Arnold Schwarzenegger, the law, did. And he's coming from another country and understands, raised by immigrants, not Americans. Not the struggle is yours, especially if you had accepted failed services for your children. That is just like a failure to thrive. How can you fail to thrive in 2021 from a public service that should be providing support? I look back on certain videos that were taped long ago about the chaos in the Black communities, as little or no resources are controlled by those folks who live in those communities, yet and still lots of federal allocations are allocated to identify the problem and help bring change. Somehow that change has never come, and the demand for accountability that will come from the Black community has been silenced. Just silenced, as the voices are never heard. But I am here to tell you, as a past recipient of public services for my children, that there is no expectation of a child to fail public school services, as there is IDEA 2004, and special education is not a label. No, it's just a pathway to the federal attainment of federal services, and the benefit is beneficial, not failed services. So these folks have just been sticking these folks here in the juvenile hall for other reasons, and letting the Department of Health and Human Services rewrite their opportunity for a free and appropriate public education. And I'm sorry, this is 2024. That's when they want to start counting. Or 2026. They said, let us have a waiver until 2024 and 2026. We just need to get ready. And I said, what have you been doing for the past 20 or 30 years? That you've been harvesting the poor and underfunding the poor schools with larger capacity to hold more poor children and siphoning off the dollars. It's called supplanting. But of course, they know what they do, especially when you read some of the current legislation to try to CYA. Ha! And that's just real. So, in this journey, I'll ask you individually to commit time to understanding why children in your local community are not meeting the basic standards of third grade reading level. And how does your local community actually hold local schools accountable for the maintenance of effort in which all children have the same rights to participate equally as we are all American citizens, or looked at as to have individual rights in the public school system? Even immigrants we educate without citizenship. But for you as an individual person who actually is a taxpayer, and I say, how is your voice heard? How do you share your concerns of the lack of the maintenance of effort and understand that Stacey Abrams, Stacey Abrams down there in Georgia, made a difference. And black folks down there understand that is their required responsibility to engage in the process and share concerns about the MOE of public services. And I will say that as she realized that engaging people who had always been prohibited or prevented from engaging in the process would kind of rock the boat, and she did. And I'll say, in 2021, as an American of the historic understanding that we were once enslaved, and at one time we had no rights. But in 2021, we have many rights as we watch the attempted coup of the federal government and how some people actually think now. We understand our sacrifices have been in vain, as they have not been moved towards a greater prosperity for our people. And in 2021, we too will be heard. So I'll say, until we meet again, pick up your phone, your cell phone, your computer, your regular house phone, and give a call to your Congress member and share with them if you believe that all children should have the opportunity to engage as American citizens, and if some children are being prohibited or retained or not promoted in regards to moving towards citizenship, I will encourage you to let your voice be heard, as we too are taxpayers in 2021, and a responsibility to engage in the onset of oversight and MOE, maintenance of effort, and the public outcomes of public education is your charge. So I challenge you in 2021 for your voices to be heard. Should failure be an option for African American children, or will our voices be heard in the understanding that we too are entitled to the maintenance of effort and real outcomes, and not certificates of completion in which do not carry the same weight as a high school diploma? And in 2021, that's what we'll be getting: vocational rehabilitation, or offer, or something meaningful from public education. So get ready for the ride in 2021, as ESSA, Every Child Succeeded, has written a pathway for all children in poverty to move forward. So shall we demand accountability for ESSA? I believe so. Until we meet again, this is Darlene Anderson saying, Understand your right to a free and appropriate public education, as the power is within your hands to move the pendulum forward.